The views, information, and opinions expressed during the following program are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent the views of Access Communications, its representatives, or its employees.
Welcome to Planting Seeds, Philanthropy in Saskatchewan, a show where we connect you to the donors and charities making an impact across the prairies. I'm your host, Victor Roman Morrow, with the South Sask Community Foundation. I hope you enjoy the show. Thanks for joining us today. I'm glad to be joined here with someone I've known for a few years, Mo Bundon. He's a pretty familiar face here, I know, in the Regina community as well as beyond in the province. And I just want to start by reading a bit of a bio. It's long, so I'm just going to read it so that I get it right. And I'll do it as quick as I can here, but it is a really important segue into what we're going to talk about. So building community and growing business is at the core of Mo's DNA. He's passionate about developing leaders. His biggest privilege is to mentor both executives and first-time employees in business and the nonprofit sector. Some of his nonprofit experience goes as follows. He's the co-founder of the Mother Teresa Middle School and the One Life Makes a Difference Foundation. He's currently a member of the University of Regina, Hill Advisory Board and Leaders Council, and on the boards of the University of Calgary Property Group and Athol Murray College of Notre Dame. He's also a recipient of the Order of Merit and received a National Philanthropy Day Award along with his partner Michelle, receiving the Outstanding Philanthropist Award in 2009. So that is a lot of information. It's word salad to everyone that just listened. I'm sure they're not going to remember any of it, but really the reason why we're here to talk is it's clear from that list. You've been around the community for a long time, you've been involved in the community for a long time, and you have a lot of experience that I think is really unique. So we thought this would be a great time to maybe hear some of those stories, hear some of those, success stories, but lessons learned as well. For really, my hope is that somebody watching this today can come away just understanding, what are some of the ways that I can go about being involved in my community to be the most impactful with what I have.
Sure.
So maybe what I'll do to start off this conversation is just ask you quickly, what got you involved in community work specifically? And then beyond that, you are a board member as well of the South Sask Community Foundation, which is obviously we put on this show. And what got you involved with us?
Sure. Well, the first part, I think I would say, is pretty organic. What gets you involved in anything in life is your mentors or your colleagues or your parents. And so to a large extent, I would credit my mom and dad, who were not big community involved people, but they were always out helping people. There was always somebody or something they were involved in. So organically that happened. And as I you volunteer for things in school, and then you get your first job, and you start to think about that, and then it goes to interests, of course. So my early, believe it or not, my probably my very first formal volunteering was being a big brother, because I was just young. I was just Michelle and I were just starting out. We didn't have any kids, and I had time.
Yeah.
And so that was and I thought, gee, that'd be a pretty neat thing to do, and had 3 fantastic matches over a course of about 10 years. And so that was part of it. And it was just sort of a natural, organic growth of wanting to be part of something and maybe help somebody, I guess would be.
Absolutely. And just that note, you and I both have that in common, being big brothers. And as a matter of fact, just as a little fun fact, when I first met Mo, through Big Brothers Big Sisters, we were honoring you for your community work there. And it was in that moment, in that conversation, that you had reveled to me that you had actually been a big brother many years ago.
That, yeah. I remember, that's right. Yeah.
But it's I know I can speak from my experience, and when I became a big brother when I was in my early 20s, like much like you, like just taking care of the community was something that was always apparent in our family. It's things you do when you volunteer. But I remember when I became a Big Brother, my first kind of nervousness and worry was like, okay, I'm gonna go meet this kid. Like in my mind, I was like, oh, I'm supposed to like inspire this kid. I've got to be this big role model. Like I'm gonna mess this up, sort of thing. But then you realize really quickly that you're just creating these authentic relationships.
Right.
And what became really apparent quick is that doing this work isn't just to help somebody. There's a reciprocal nature. And once you start to do it, it just becomes infectious. So,
absolutely, yeah. And that's a really good point, that there's no need to prepare for it.
Yeah.
You just have to do what you want. I remember pretty clearly going and meeting this young fellow and his mom. And his mom was more worried about going off, and we didn't have the guardrails 45 years ago. So that, I don't know, I don't think there was any checks or anything about who I was then. And I said, we're just gonna go in my car and we're gonna go for a ride, and there's a baseball game at a little park down there. I thought we'd just go back, because I've been told he was interested in sports. We'll go watch a little bit of the baseball game, and maybe get an ice cream cone. And that's essentially what we did. And a lot of our things were just like that. So it was, and the reciprocal part is that it's an introduction to a family that maybe doesn't fit with your upbringing. Yeah. And so then that was really an introduction to maybe sort of some of the social items that were happening within the community, and so it was a good experience. Yeah.
So that sounds like what maybe planted your feet a little bit into that. So where did you go from there?
Yeah. Well, I followed a little bit of uninteresting volunteer work. Like friends talked me into volunteering to knock on some doors on a community issue that I wasn't really interested in. Yeah. But they were doing it. Yeah. And that taught me early that I should only do things that I have an interest, not necessarily a passion. Like people say it has to be a passion. It doesn't have to be a passion, but a clear interest. Yeah. And then from that, then I moved to Regina 40 some years ago, and there was an organization at the time which was Regina Volunteer Center. It was it was a small board. I'm not sure it's origin. It's no longer around, but I just threw my name in there, and people said, "Why don't you try this?" And then I found stuff that I was interested in sport. Yeah. So the Canada Games or the Regina Rowing Club, that kind of stuff. Interested in education. Yeah. My alumni, Notre Dame College at Wilcox, so became involved in there, and then things just naturally progressed. Yeah. Maybe as you develop some skills, some interests, and also trying to stick with, do things with people that you like. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you don't pick everybody you work with on a board or anything. No. But if you have a common interest, they're just trying to be. That's true in business. Like do business with people that you want to do business with. Yeah, and volunteer. You put your best foot forward when you're in that environment where you feel motivated and engaged, right? So that totally makes sense. As far as the Community Foundation, this is kind of the last how did you get here question, then I want to get into some of the lessons, but how did you come to be on the board of the South Sask Community Foundation, and what has that experience been like for you? Well, it's been a good experience. There's a few giants in South Saskatchewan that go way back. One of them is Jim Tompkins, and he was involved for many, many years. And several years ago, I asked Jim to do a big favor for me. And it was something that he and his wife Lynn said, "Ooh, I'm retired. I'm not sure I want to do this." And they were planning something else. Yeah. And I convinced Jim to do it. And and I said to him at the time, I said, if you ever ask me for anything, I will do it. And then out of the blue, about 5 or 6 years later, he called. I was aware of the South Saskatchewan Foundation, but I was not familiar with it. And he said, we're looking for a board member. You might be a good. And I just said, Jim, yes. Like I didn't. So that's probably not how you look at a board, but that's how it happened for me. And he's such he's a giant in the community and has helped so much in many, many aspects. I have a lot of respect. So it wasn't a big stretch to say yes.
Yeah.
But that's how.
I'm sure you had the trust that he knew you and you knew him well enough.
Right, we'd worked together.
He was probably asked you to do something relevant, right? Not throwing you to the wolves or anything.
Right.
So, no, that's interesting. I've met Jim and Lynn Tompkins. They're fantastic individuals and really involved in the community. And I know through the foundation, and I know we mentioned the National Philanthropy Day Awards.
That's right.
I know they received one recently as well.
That's right. Yeah,
was good.
Right.
Nice to hear. So on this journey, I guess one of the things that maybe I want to poke about first is when people look at volunteering, sometimes you don't realize, and actually, I've spoken to university students recently, and what we've found is that no matter what you're going to be going into as a profession, there's probably a community need for that. I'll even give a most recent example. Like we've been working with the University of Regina with their software engineering classes. And we've actually, one of our employees was hired from that because people kind of connecting those dots to like digital media, digital marketing, and digital infrastructures and the implications that it can even have on a charity being able to say, map out food resources or map out kind of causes in a way that people can decide where they're going to go donate or just create communication in a way that can actually guide someone looking to donate, someone looking to volunteer, or charities looking to figure out what they should be focusing on in meaningful ways. Like there's no spot professionally that I think you probably can't find a use for your skills.
I think you're right. Yeah.
So with your experience and maybe experience around you, how have you seen kind of those decisions of like, this is what I'm good at and this is what I can offer to this organization and this is why I'm going to be involved? Does that kind of play a part in what you've done and how?
Well, for sure, in a couple different ways. I'll go back to the way of working with some of the younger people in our company, in our business, in the Hill businesses. We're involved in the community. We want our staff to be involved in the community, but you might have somebody that is pretty maybe shy or has not done anything. You say, well, who would want me? Well, you're an accountant or you're and every organization needs something. And so I've done quite a bit of that, like trying to help people place people and just say go with the flow, like and take on a small responsibility in that organization. So that's one way. On a personal level, I've made I have some observations. I mean, I don't know whether they're I don't know whether I would have the full data to provide, but so there are a couple criteria that I always think about on a board. So or in any volunteer situation. One is that when you volunteer for something, it's your will to choose to do it.
Yeah.
Once you do it, you have the same responsibility to do that job. I'm not just talking fiduciary responsibility. I'm talking like a gut responsibility to do the job just like you would do your own job or you treat your family or whatever. So do it at your very best. So it's not like, well, I can't make that meeting or I can't, like you got to be committed to it. So then the next piece that comes with that in my mind is that it should be something that you have an interest in. Maybe you have the skill set, or maybe you have an interest in learning about it. Like many of the organizations in the city, like I don't know anything about a specific item, so I have volunteers say, this is something I'd like to learn a little bit more about. And then there's always in these organizations, there's always experts.
Yeah.
And you learn, and that sort of drives you more.
My own curiosity, like, what are the skills? And I guess I want to kind of put someone in the shoes of like how they can think about like, what are my skills and what should I think about? So in your case, like, what are your skills that you would maybe look at that help you decide where I'm going to look at or what board roles might make sense? And
how self-aware am I?
How self-aware am I?
When I know what my skills are?
Yeah.
And do others think they have the same those skills? Good question. For me, so I'm a generalist.
Mm-hmm.
I do not have the expertise that a highly qualified person in like finance or legal or that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But I think one skill I have is I'm a contrary thinker, and I ask. I'm not afraid to ask a question that other people don't want to ask. And in a board, the other piece that I like a little bit of friction.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not concerned about in a reasonable way, in a polite way, in a respectful way, but asking a question. So, and you see a lot of so you go on a board or in a group, and this is the way they've been doing it.
Yeah.
And this is what they think. And so that would be a skill that I think generally people would recognize in me. The skills that I look at in other people is that they want to help.
Mm-hmm.
They have a concern, a real legitimate concern for the community, and that they're open to the diversity of the thought process that goes on. And so that's the other piece. We're in a society that there's some pretty hard edges on lots of stuff. So I want to be involved with people that can smooth some of those edges and recognize that the conversation can occur.
Yeah. Yep.
Regardless of what, you might have a little different opinion, but if there's 8 people in the room that all think this is right, and you're the odd person on the board, then get on board.
Yeah.
But still voice your opinion.
Still voice it. Yeah. I think I want to stick a bit on that skill, that kind of contrarian. I like that term for it, because I'll say I've been on many boards. I've also been an executive director reporting with the board and kind of on, I guess, the operations side as well as the governance side. And it really is a skill, I think, to be on a board and understand the right times to speak up, when to speak up, and what to speak up about. And like to your note, if you show up on a board and you're just there to be a yes person and just say, okay, good to go, and you're never probing, then for one, maybe the organization's working really well, but even in the case that they are, and this is something that I've said to our staff, I like the philosophy to start from, no matter how good it is, it can be better. And you can't make it better unless you're asking some of those, like you mentioned, contrarian questions. And it's not because you're trying to say you need to do it different, but it's, have you thought about it, and making sure that those thoughts are happening and making sure that you have the opportunity to get to a better, different, innovative solution if there is one to be found, right?
Right. I think that's important. And to a large extent, in my opinion, is somewhat brought out by a good board chair. That, they say, well, say, ask whatever you want, but if you ask whatever you want and somebody immediately puts you down, or so you see often a board, and this is both a positive thing and perhaps a difficult thing. You see in boards, like, people come with different skill sets, and they come with different knowledge, and they come with different thoughts of where they want to be. So sometimes it takes a little longer.
Yeah.
So I like to be on a board that has some consistency, that the turnover is not like everybody every second. Like, so if you have, because then you sort of sense, okay, this would be a good time ask Victor to, what about this? Like,
Yeah.
you know, the question is good. If I could say one other thing on that is that, and we're talking about when you start on a board or you start in volunteering, I think one of the big pieces is that make that decision on your own. Somebody might help you get there and that stuff, but being a volunteer is not to get you ahead. I mean, to pad the experience. You will get ahead naturally by being on and meeting people and networking and all that kind of stuff. But you know, I have been in organizations. People want to be involved in it, but they want to be involved because they want to be involved in it.
Yeah.
So
they want it as a bullet point potentially, kind of on the resume.
My good friend, my good friend Bob Ellard, who was a pillar of volunteering in this community, doesn't live here anymore. He now is a pillar in another community, but he we had when we did several things in the volunteer community together, and one of the things we always said when we were recruiting people, said we would really like you, but when you come, you're on the team here. There's no other, you know, no other agenda. You just got to be on the team.
It's easier said than done, I think, in a lot of times. And you know, we're a bit on the topic of boards right now, but I think boards are important. There's so many of them. There's no matter every single organization, whether you're, you know, a sports organization or a registered charity, like you're dealing with boards in different ways, shapes, and forms. And that's something that I'll just kind of say to the audience, like, that's something that people always need is skilled board members. So if you've got a skill, if you've got a desire, like figure out something in your community that, like you said, you care about even at a base level, and find a way to be involved if it's the right thing for you. But,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I'm curious around the lessons learned, and I don't know if you have anything specific you want to talk to, but you know, there's a lot of good things that happen. Have you ever been in a situation where maybe you realized, like, oh, maybe this wasn't the right place for me to be at, or maybe this was the wrong thing for me to bring up, or this isn't working and we got to figure out how to fix it?
But I think all those places, you can't prepare for the agenda that comes at you as a board member. I don't mean this the written agenda for a meeting, but especially as you get into a larger board, or a board with maybe a little bit more governance, or maybe dealing with difficult situations. Like I always say to people, you know, they asked me to be the board chair. What do you think, Mo? And I'll say, well, you know that's a really great organization. There's lots of things happen, but you also know the minute you're in their chair, there will be something that you didn't expect to happen. And so you've got to be prepared to give it your all to figure that out. And in the community boards that I've been involved in, one of the most difficult things is that there's never enough funding. There's never enough resources to do all the things that the organization would like to do. So, and it's difficult to say to an executive director, to the staff, and you've seen this at South Saskatchewan, you know, like, those are all great ideas, but we have this many staff, these many things we can do. So let's pick our spots. So that strategic piece is critical, and lining up that strategic piece with people that come from a really broad spectrum of the community is tricky. And so that takes lots of conversation. So that would be the one lesson that I would say is that, and this would be not only a lesson for boards, but lessons for business, lessons for relationships, is that it takes time. And you have to be prepared to give it that time, or else it doesn't work.
Like just in general, it's like everybody in the city might speak English, but the reality is different people speak very different languages within the one language. So it's like finding that commonality. How do we come together and understand each other? And,
absolutely.
Yeah, and that's a big tricky part. We're going to kind of wind down now, and I had one other thought that I think could be really useful to hear from, which is we've talked a lot about the volunteering giving. When it comes to the monetary giving and trying to decide, you alluded to the idea that one thing is like an organization always has a million things that they could do or want to do, but only so much that they can. The reality we see is, when somebody applies for a grant from us, we're getting double the amount of requests that we can actually give out. And we work a lot of times with fund holders that have those tough decisions of like, how do we actually decide which ones get funding and which ones don't? So from your perspective, when you're looking at giving, knowing that there's such a strong need, I guess this is kind of two parts. One is, what are the things that drive you to feel comfortable that you're giving to something that you know is working well? And from kind of a charity standpoint, like what are the right questions and prompts and things that a charity might come to someone looking to give that will help them decide, okay, this is something that I know I'm on board to support?
The decision from a philanthropic point of view to make the decision to gift something, I think is a little organic from myself, Michelle. I try to get to know the people running the organization. And I want to know how they're thinking, and I try to get them to prioritize something for me, and then I say that lines up with some of the things. So for me, it would be education, many of the sort of food, faith. Those would be some of the things that I would want to
kind
support.
of line up with what you believe in.
Yeah, and for a person who's asking for money or for funding, my view is that you don't have to be over-prepared. You have to be authentic.
Yeah.
And you should expect to be, why would somebody fund you until they know you? So taking the time in whatever way to build that relationship, and I've certainly have participated in funding organizations that I never thought I would. Once I realized the kind of work these people were doing, and I got a better understanding of it, I said, well, yeah, that makes totally sense. We should be in there. So, but it's listening to people.
I think that's a great way to end off, and that's a really, really strong tip, I think, just for anyone looking to be involved. So I really appreciate your time here, Mo. It's been nice talking to you, and I know people listening are going to get a lot out of this. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning in today. If you'd like to learn more about the South Sask Community Foundation and how you can make an impact in your own community, visit yourlegacyforever.ca. Thank you.
If you'd like to share your feedback on the program you just watched, contact us today